Yes, so this is at least a partial, if not a full, and we're reading this because there are several concurrences here, but it's written by Justice Barrett, which goes against the ruling that I just gave the guidance because she's one of the least junior justices, but she was assigned to write this opinion. And essentially what she says, some say that the universal injunctions give the judiciary a powerful tool to check the executive branch, but she says federal courts do not exercise general oversight of the executive branch. They resolve cases and controversies consistent with the authority Congress has given to them. When a court concludes the executive branch has acted unlawfully, the answer is not for the court to exceed its power, sounding very much like they are limiting these injunctions. We know here that they have granted at least partially the stay to these preliminary injunctions, but they say only to the extent that the injunctions are broader than necessary to...
All right, we got to talk about the story today. So obviously you guys know you don't have to be so familiar with it, but the Supreme Court had a monumental decision today. And I think this is a very important discussion because what they decided was not about the birthright citizenship, even though that's what they were debating. This wasn't about immigration. This was about our actual republic. This was about the separation of the legislative, judicial, and the executive, on how much power the president has to enact his civil service to his people, what they elected him to do, how much he can actually implement his agenda. This is an extremely serious case. Now, I am not joking when I was mentioning earlier today about how Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's the DEI judge appointed by Biden, she dissented to this case, which was trying to find out, do lower courts have the ability to block executive actions? Do they have the ability to block the president's edicts for the country? And I just love this. This is not a joke. I have a copy of her dissent. She said that lower courts should be allowed to block the president. She said, stated simply, what it means to have a system of government that is bounded by law is that everyone is constrained by the law, no exceptions. And for that to actually happen, courts must have the power to order everyone, including the executive, to follow the law, full stop. Dead ass. I bet you she drives a Nissan Altima. Jumping right into the discussion for this, we are living in a joke world where you have people who have wield so much power, so much authority. She has the ability to interpret the Constitution. And I want to jump here by saying it is odd to me that it's 6-3. These are people who interpret the Constitution, that it's not 9-0. As Greta Van Susteren said directly here, why is it that when we're talking about the very basic definition of what the Constitution means, is the Supreme Court and the interpreters of the Constitution confused and split on whether the executive branch has the power that it has? I am alarmed. And it was the three, it was Sotomayor, Kogan, whatever her name is, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, three dyke-looking liberal women who are godless. They don't fear man, and they don't follow the Constitution. They decided that the Constitution doesn't really matter. Doesn't that alarm you a little bit that they don't believe the executive branch should have the power to enact what the people voted him to do? It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're questioning what the founding fathers founded for this country, what they established, and we elected Trump. We didn't elect these local judges to make decisions for our country and to push back against what Trump is what he promised to do.
Yeah, isn't it? But, yeah. Okay, it's like, and of course it's the women with the dyke haircuts.
Yeah, it's always the same three. I was actually happy. It seems like Amy was on our side this time. Amy's kind of been switching back and forth.
Their cycles got unsynced this round. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So it kind of dodged it there. But yeah, no, I'm not surprised from these crazy judges. What they want to do is they want to allow the lower courts to go ahead and block everything Trump's been doing. I mean, we've seen in his previous administration, we're seeing it once again, where they just stand in the way of what the American people actually voted for. We voted for stricter immigration laws. We voted for, bring businesses back to America. I know they're giving him a hard time on tariffs before. So they pretty much do whatever they can to stand in his way, knowing that majority of the country voted for him. And in my opinion, not just once or twice, but 3 times, I believe we've elected him into office. But all it does is it just becomes roadblock after roadblock with a lot of these corrupt judges that it makes no sense, where they want to put illegal immigrants before the American people. So I'm happy to see this ruling is coming in his favor, especially when it comes to the birthright citizenship. This has been a big problem for a long time. It was used originally for slaves, is why they came up with it. But then the liberal system just pretty much found it as a loophole, tried to smuggle in as many illegals as they can to replace us as quick as possible. I know and also on the other hand, it's also been very profitable for, all the cartels in Mexico as well. So I'm glad to see we're getting closer to putting an end to this.
Yeah, well, as Trump said, I'm going to come. And he came quickly. No joke. That's not even a joke. He did say that. But beyond talking about what this defined or what this ended up deciding for our country, which is that Trump can go ahead with his agenda. This is very important, guys. You don't understand how important this is. The Supreme Court decided that the Constitution still exists. That's kind of a weird thing that we have to debate that. However, Trump has said now, then you know what? He's going to just go ahead full speed. Are we getting the Trump back from 2016? Listen to him talking about ending birthright citizenship. I think this is a great discussion that we can talk about whether this is good for the country or not, and what really defines an American. Listen.
And thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she could talk as long as she wants, because this is a very important decision. This is a decision that covers a tremendous amount of territory. But I want to just thank again the Supreme Court for this ruling. It's a giant. It's a giant. And they should be very proud, and our country should be very proud of the Supreme Court today.
Okay, so I want to go right to you on this. This is what he's saying. Hey, look, our system, this birthright system, has been used by people like Zohran Mamdani.
New York's
right?
about to pay the price.
Correct. It's like, you know, your parents come, you end up basically, you know, getting born here. Vivek's the same way. And then you put on a cowboy hat and go, yeehaw, everybody, I'm one of you. And it's like, you know, that's not really a good idea, because in the end, my personal opinion, and you might disagree with me, I think that the only way that you should have citizenship in a country is if one of your parents and you're born were already a citizen of that country. So like my kids are dual citizens, which I joke, that's why they're going to run for Congress one day, right? They're ready for that. They're dual citizens, Australian American, but their mom's an Australian citizen. So when we were in Australia, I wouldn't assume that my children should become Australians if I gave birth, my wife gave birth to them, if we were just Americans hanging out there. And I wouldn't have asked them for dual citizenship. I wouldn't have applied. But because their mom is, and then here they have citizenship because we're in two different countries. I don't believe that should exist. I actually don't think that system is right. As it stands, I am taking advantage of it because they get, you know, we look at free surgeries, whatever they want in Australia, free college education, and then over here they get freedom. So I understand that, but I definitely believe this idea of like Mexicans coming, especially here illegally, or even Chinese people coming here illegally, people going on vacations. Saudi Arabia had a program that they would actually pay for your education, to for women to come to America if they were pregnant, so that they could have their babies here and they become American citizens. This is an abuse of the system, and I think this is right to end this, but you know that they're not, the people who hate our country, they're not going to let this slide very easily.
Right. Yeah, I think you guys said it right. I mean, this is a perversion of the Constitution. This is a perversion of what was originally intended for slaves. And what happens is, and I've heard a lot of arguments on TikTok from liberals in the live stream debates and on their videos, what ends up happening is it's not just the anchor baby, but the illegal parents then get to stay here too. And that has a cascade of negative effects. But what Trump is saying is that they criticize him for separating the families. There was a notable case where they're saying that there was a young girl, a child, that was going through cancer treatments, and Trump is separating her from her parents. I mean, what a disingenuous argument, because she's a child, the parents are illegal. She's technically legal here because of this perversion of the constitutional amendment. What do they want Trump to do? If the parents get kicked out, where's she going to go? She's a child. So do they want him to separate the family? He's trying to keep the family together. He's not going to remove the parents and keep her, under some kind of government supervision or put her in a foster care. He's saying, I don't want to separate the families. Go back home with your parents, and when you're of age, you can come back here if you want. You have a citizenship. So yeah, I mean, not only that they're perverting it, but they're making a bunch of disingenuous arguments. They're paying influencers on TikTok and social media platforms to just slander Trump and his administration for standing for what the Constitution really is originally fighting for. And it was not to have a bunch of anchor babies and have their illegal parents staying here wrongly.